Thank you. All right, looks like Peter's in the call. Hey, Peter, good to see you again. Alex, we've got two recent babies in the mix. Alex had a baby, I think, last month, and then Drew just had his son this last week. Or was it this week?
Thursday, a week ago yesterday.
I was hoping he'd be in the call for some support.
I was just holding him like last minute, gave to my wife and ran in here.
Up the cute factor of the call.
Mhm.
All right, so let me, Indrek says, congratulations. Let me pull up our list here. So happy Friday, everyone. We have been doing a bunch this week, and so hopefully we'll get a chance to show you some of the updates at the end of the call. We just want to welcome everyone here. Hi, Gabrielle. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So I'm just going to go down the line and see who is on and if anyone's new. So from the Builder team, you've got me, kind of jack of all trades, run support. We've got Drew, Mark, and Dorian. And then we've kind of got some super early users that have really helped us a lot in the tool. So shout out to Richard, who we're going to be showcasing his work today, and then Alex Karpinski, amazingly as well. These guys have given us incredible feedback to help us get the tool where it is today. And then let's see who else is in the call. We've got Ken, Dennis, Felicia, who is from our dev team in Romania. She's amazing. Mark, what is she working on again? She's like building out, is it a little calendar?
Yeah, she actually just shared the project with me. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I mean, it was like an hour ago, but it's like a full calendar component. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, Felicia is the reason why you will see a minimal amount of bugs in Builder, because she is like the master, as well as actually Richard too, helped us a ton. I call him like the master bug hunter, because he would always find like all those edge case scenarios. So yeah, Felicia, glad that you're here. And then we've got Gabrielle, Indrek, Lance, Mariana, Milton, Paige, Peter, Richard. I think is it Shraman? I hope that's how you say it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And
It's Shreman. I think I'm new, so hey everyone.
Shraman, welcome. Thank you for letting me know how to say it correctly. Glad that you are here. And let's see, Tim, and then Tom Parrish, a good friend of ours. And then we have Steve from, I'm guessing, the Flow Agency. Is that right, Steve? Yes, I think that's correct. Cool. Well, very, very glad to have everyone here. Like, as I said, happy Friday. So I think we are good to get started. Looks like it's five minutes after. Okay, so today's Builder Hour, we are going to showcase the Cocina app that was built by Richard Lowe. And then at the end, we'll kind of go through a Q&A, of course, for Richard. And then I'll ask Mark to give us some updates on the latest release that we're going to roll out to you guys this coming week. So yeah, let's get started. Richard, if you are ready to share. Mark, I think you got to do something to maybe allow him. And then if you guys have questions as Richard is sharing his work, feel free to chat it into the little chat here, or however you guys want to ask. And then, yeah, so Richard is going to demo us an app, Cocina, that he built in Builder. And then, as I mentioned, Richard has been in Builder for probably like a year now. He was one of the super early users that we let in from a really small group, and has helped us tremendously. So very, very excited to get a chance to share some of what he's done in the tool. So Richard, whenever you are ready, take it away.
Cool. Thanks so much, Cora. Yeah, let me try sharing my screen. here we go. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Thumbs up. Cool. Okay. So yeah, a little bit of background on Cocina, the application. So basically, I like to cook quite a lot, and I often use Google to find recipes. One of the pain points that I had was there are certain blogs that I always go back to, and I didn't have a good way to like save these recipes in a single place. So what I would end up doing was always go to Google and just like literally type in the same keywords to find the exact recipe that I want, and then scroll down to the bottom to the actual recipe. So I wanted to create basically just a place for me to save all of the links to these recipes, but ideally also the content, so specifically the ingredients and the instructions. So I figured it'd be a cool project to build in Bildr, because I had not built like a full-on like web application before with the whole like CRUD, like create, read, update, delete functionality. So I thought it was going to be cool to basically allow users to create accounts, have collections of recipes. And one really cool part about this particular application is that I was able to integrate a third-party API called Spoonacular, and they're the ones that actually help me get the ingredients and instructions per recipe. So I'll show you around real quick. This is pretty much just the landing page, or the register page. If you go here right now, cocina.arbolabs right now, that you can, this is what you'll see. And all the styling right now is using Bootstrap. So that was also a really cool thing that Mark implemented really quickly for me in one of the releases. Basically, I didn't really want to write my own CSS, which obviously Bildr allows you to customize whatever you want. But I was able to import Bootstrap as like a library in my page headers, and then I was able to use those external classes. So all of the designs that you're seeing in this application is just Bootstrap just strung together, pretty much the defaults. So I will go ahead and log in. I created a fresh account right before this so that you guys can take a look. And also this app is like responsive as well. So you can see like I hide the image when it gets on mobile and stuff like that. So let me do this. Okay, so standard login, registration, forgot password, all of that stuff. Before I actually had opened this up, I was using the waitlist feature of Bildr as well. So that was really nice. Like I just had like a super basic landing page, and people, I was able to collect emails before I actually opened the application. And then when I opened the application, I basically let people in, allow them to create a password and whatnot. So this is the empty screen. Basically, when you have no recipes, you have this image here. And basically what's happening is you can add a recipe. And so it's really simple. You just grab a URL from a food blog. And I talked to Drew about this. He gave me some good tips. Initially, I had a huge form where you would have to input everything yourself. But Drew was like, maybe we can just simplify it. And so it ended up turns out like, maybe we can just grab the link. And I think that worked out really well. So I'm going to go to one of my favorite food blogs. It's called Serious Eats. This is a chocolate chip cookie recipe. This guy, Kenji, if you guys don't know about him, he's a boss and is so good. He basically applies like the scientific method to cooking, and it's awesome. In any case, we'll put in this URL into my app. And so what's happening right now is it runs through does an API request with Spoonacular to grab the instructions and ingredients, and pre-populates it into these fields. So you can see that we have the URL here, which we can kick out and open to Serious Eats, the blog, or whichever blog you want. It grabs the image from the blog as well, and then you have the ingredients and instructions. So the ingredients and instructions, basically the way Spoonacular returns it to me is this like JSON object, and I have to parse it myself. And I noticed that they're not super perfect, so that's why I decided to kick people into this edit page before actually before they actually hit save, because then this allows them, if they want to fix anything, fix any styling or whatnot, they can actually change things here if the scraping is not perfect. But what was actually a pretty cool lesson that I picked up from this is that some people, and even myself, figured that this is a feature rather than just like like a random thing. Basically, you can start with someone's recipe, but you can actually modify it to become whatever you want. So you have the ingredients here, you have the instructions as well. And for the instructions, what I typically do is I don't like how it looks. So I'll typically like remove that first word and then kind of do the line breaks wherever I need, and then you can hit save. And so what happens when you save is it saves to your collection as a user. And I can go back to my home screen and pretty much it'll add a card, which you can see over here. And so for each recipe that I add, it'll just add a new card with the title, and you can click into it. You can edit, delete, whatever you want. Pretty standard stuff. And then let me see. Over here, I've got this profile settings page, which is pretty basic right now, but it just shows like the user's email address. You can change the name, or you can update the profile picture if you want, and hit save, and that'll save everything. I think that's just about it, actually, on the user side of things. How should I do this, Cora? Should I go into the back end and show you guys, or should I take up questions? Okay.
Yeah, actually, does anyone have any questions on the UI side of it? I'm pretty sure the answers will come from what he'll show us in the studio. I just have to say that it looks amazing. It's really, really cool. I've had a lot of people who have actually asked me for like access to it, or just been like, hey, we want to use it. I know Mark's wife was really excited about it.
We use it.
Y'all use it?
Yeah, and some of Kim's friends use it too. Like as soon as you launched it, Richard, I was just showing Kim like, oh, look at this cool thing one of the users of Bildr built, you know, and she was like, well, I want to use that, you know. So we actually started using it.
That's awesome.
Super awesome.
Cool. Well,
so
yeah.
If you want to
show
take us in the studio, Richard,
the studio. Awesome. So I haven't updated or upgraded my studio to the latest version yet. So it's definitely does not look as cool as what Mark showed last week or last time. But I can show you guys around and how it works at the moment. So let's start with the home page. So the home page is here. And basically
frozen. Are you guys seeing the screen?
No. Yeah, I see it frozen too on mine.
Let me try again. Yeah, it said sharing is paused.
Richard, it was showing like a really cool wavy wavy window.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Custom.
There we go.
How about this? Can you see me now? Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, I can show you guys around. Homepage, basically I have different components. So I've got firstly, it's just like this main outer container that just holds everything. And then I've got this nav bar component, which I reuse on different pages. So that's really nice that I don't have to like, I can make changes in one place and then it'll get propagated in other places. And then I've got, so I have the container with content, and then I also have the container with like the 0 state. So I believe this should have that image that you guys saw initially. And then it has this list of rows. So basically, this is connected to the database, and we'll pull in the rows, or pull in each kind of like recipe. And let me see. I think, yeah, this is where I did the filtering. But basically, I'm only showing the recipes that were created by the user who's logged in currently. So that's how you do that filtering, rather than showing all the recipes in the system. And then over here, you have this recipe card, which is actually shows you all the different elements of a specific recipe on the home page, at least. And so for this section, I have, let's see. You have the card, you have this card image shop. And what you'll notice is in the styling, this is where I'm using Bootstrap here, like external style class. So these are actually Bootstrap classes that I'm just like grabbing rather than having to write my own CSS, which is really helpful for me. And then also data gets populated, I think, from the list rows. So that's how that worked. The nav bar component is pretty good. It's pretty interesting as well, because this is actually where I put the whole create recipe flow. So basically, and this also handles like the nav bar like collapses on mobile, and then here's this modal, which is hidden by default. you know, I had to do a little bit of like working around to get the modal to show up and hide properly because it uses some JavaScript. Let me see if I can move this over here. Okay, cool. So let me see.
So one thing interesting that I'm noting here is that, Richard, you've got like the start, what you're seeing in the studio is sort of like the starting state. It's like the default state.
Mhm.
And then whenever that loads, it looks like you're running different things, right? Like depending on if the user's signed in or not. And then if they're, you know, based on whatever's going on the page, you're changing it up. Is that how that's going on?
Yeah, totally. So the nav bar, I can't actually see the actions right now, but I basically have a bunch of hidden things. Yeah, so you can see. Actually getting a little bit confused right now. Which part were you referring to, Mark?
I was just saying, like, you've got a modal in there, right? And that modal is probably hidden by default or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you like change it on click or something along those lines. Like the user clicks the button and it shows it or something.
Totally, yeah. So for this specific modal, I think that I had to go into the JavaScript because I had to add these classes.
Oh man, you went really custom.
Yeah, just because with Bootstrap they have animations, and so the animations would like make it like fade in, fade out, rather than just like appear.
Right.
So I had to go a little bit deeper than just using the normal stuff.
That's really
trying
awesome
to show.
You were able to do that though. Like, so you went in and manually added the stuff into the JSON there?
Yeah, I did.
So yeah, just so everybody understands what that is. So when you're using Bildr, it's generating a JSON for everything you're doing, right? So what you're looking at here is the JSON that was generated for this element called modal. And we give you access to it because there's always edge cases that a platform like Bildr is not going to be able to accommodate for, like the one that Richard ran into here, where he's using Bootstrap and it's got some specific styling that he wants to either override or overcome in some way or change in some way. And there's no way for us to like handle all these possibilities of external things. So by giving you access to this JSON and then also even further to the JavaScript that all the actions and elements use to render, you can come in and customize as far as you want. And a lot of that comes from us doing client work over the years. We do something for a client and they always ask for something that the platform couldn't do, right? So when we built Bildr and wanted to release it to the world, we decided we're just going to make it completely flexible and open. So, yep. Sorry, Rich, I didn't mean to take over there, but just wanted to explain.
No worries. Yeah, for sure. So that's that. And actually, speaking of, let me see if this is the correct one. Yeah. So you can see here, this is actually how I had to hide the modal. And in Bootstrap, they actually just, you're supposed to like on click, if you want to close it, then this is how it does it. So it finds the element on the page with the ID of add recipe modal. I think that is this one. Yeah, exactly. So then that's when it knows after it's opened, it'll close it using the JavaScript.
So that's using a library for that. So there's like a hide function in that library, or how's that?
Exactly. Yeah. So Bootstrap uses.
I see.
I forget what it is, but yeah, Bootstrap has like their HTML and CSS styling stuff, but then they also have like some animations and stuff using JavaScript.
Gotcha.
You can see it's jQuery too, so they must pull in jQuery because that's not in Bildr. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's super flexible. I remember I was helping Richard with this little when we set it up.
Yeah.
That's awesome, Richard. The only thing I ever use the run JavaScript function for, I use that for like Mixpanel, those type of integrations where they give you like a little script that you can put in for connecting these things. And it's really easy. Just copy and paste their script in there and just do it. And it works just like any other action in the platform then. It's probably the easiest way to use JavaScript because like I don't understand at all what that JavaScript is doing, but I can read the syntax of the thing.
Yeah, totally. So what I wanted to show in this section is this part. So this is where I'm actually like going through the steps of getting a recipe. So what I'll do initially is to validate if it's not empty. So I disable the button so they can't just like keep clicking it. And then I run this condition to compare. I just make sure that the value of the input field is not empty. And if it's not empty, then it'll continue and run this get recipe action. And I think this is when, yeah, this is where I'm actually composing that whole API thing. So Spoonacular, I'll show you guys real quick. I think it's over here. Spoonacular is this API that I found, and they have this extract recipe from website kind of API that I could use. And so you just basically you create this link, and then I also add in my API key to grab any recipe from any website. So I'll show you guys how I implemented that in Bildr. So I use this API endpoint get and set variable, get and set in variable action. And so I take that first part of the URL and add this API key here. And then I use Bildr's, they have this feature called secrets where you can basically create your API keys and hide them. So I have my Spoonacular API, and then this is all concatenated together. So I have that part of the URL, and then I have the API, and then I have the secret key, and then I add this URL. So the URL is going to be pulled in from whatever the user inputted in the actual form field. I had to do some encoding. Dorian helped me a lot with this, and also when I received the stuff back and parse it, yeah, Dorian like really helped me with the parsing using I forget what we call it. I forget what it was called actually. The documentation stuff.
The builder paths.
Yeah, the paths.
Go back up to that URL encode because I want to highlight that real quick. So
yep,
he has path there. So this is something that we're working on a UI around because you have to like know JavaScript functions to know how to use this properly. But basically what this is you can add any set of JavaScript functions that we have applied, which we have like, I don't know, 50 or something now. So URL encode, what that's doing is taking this value that the user pasted in and it's encoding it into the URL format. So it does things like takes a space and converts it into, I think it's, what is it, percentage for a space? Like if you look in the URL, yeah. So it does that conversion for you. But in that path, you can do all kinds of things. There's like, I mean, there's, I don't even know, there's like replace, there's split and slice and all these different things that are just built into JavaScript. So we'll be putting a UI around that and making it to where you just have inputs. But if you do want any of those things, we have some sort of like informal documentation that we can send. So if you get into those things, just chat about it and we're happy to send that over.
Cool. So what I do once this response comes back, I actually create a variable called API response. And so this is now available on my page. And so this action is complete and then it goes on to the next stage. And so this one was, I noticed some recipe sites like don't allow scraping or there's some error. So then I do some error checking first to see before I try to like actually create the recipe. And then let's move on. So that's the error state. That's what happens when there's an error that happens. Basically, it's like, do it again, please. And then let me just go back to save recipe. So this is where it got a little bit, where I got a lot of help from Dorian. So this is, getting fancy with the path.
That's super fancy, my goodness. So you're like taking the response and replacing things in it? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, it was something about like the rich text and regular text, and I don't recall exactly, but Dorian and Drew like really spent a lot of time with me on that part because it's just like the way that the text was getting
text line breaks versus HTML line breaks. So you have to convert those /r/ns that are a text return to be an HTML. It's like generally like pretty simple, if you have access to it. So luckily we have the paths. We could just, you can see it's just a couple quick replace alls.
So without that, the instructions would get set into the field, but it wouldn't be, it would like those things would be wrong. Like
it wouldn't display the line break because, in HTML code, you can write as many line breaks as you want and they don't display. It only displays if you actually use a BR tag. So we had to actually convert those to HTML so that the line breaks would display correctly.
Gotcha. And that's for the display inside of the text editor, the rich text editor.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
This is the kind of stuff that is what I'm talking about when I say that there's always a way to work around stuff in Builder. It's intentionally designed with extensibility so that if you get stuck, like there's something that you can do to get around it and make it work. And there's a variety of different ways. So if you guys ever encounter something, do chat it in the community and like we'll help you guys out with it and then share the information so everybody can also learn as well. Because this is awesome that you guys were able to get around it like that.
For sure. So one step was I created this variable called instructions. So that's the variable name. And what I'm really trying to do is like tee up all these things so that I can create the actual recipe in my system. So that's how I extracted the instructions and formatted it correctly. And then I did the same thing for ingredients. So Spinacula returns the ingredients to me. And so basically I had to do this. I think Dorian helped me with this. I grabbed all the different keys. It's just the way that they returned the data that I needed to. I basically just wanted a list of all the ingredients. And then I run this create record action, which basically creates a new recipe using all of these fields. So I've got the name of the recipe, and that's the title, the image. It's pulled in from the API response, the image. So I'm basically this path is I'm able to parse the JSON response that's coming back to me. And then I've got the recipe URL, and then this is where like the instructions variable that I set there is right here. Now I'm pulling it in, or it's right there, and then I'm pulling in. And then secondly, the ingredients that I just parsed as well is there. So that's how I'm able to create the recipe. And then what I do is I hide the modal, reset it so that if a user wants to add another recipe, then they can do that. Lance, did you say that you had a question? I see your hand raised.
Yeah. In the same way that you're parsing the information that you're scraping, you could probably, just thinking out loud, do filtering and sorting using the same principle.
What do you mean?
In other words, if once you've got your information, if you needed to filter it and then sort it in a certain way, you probably use the same methodology using the JSON.
Oh, right. Yeah, definitely. Cool. So I think that's it.
You can definitely do that with paths or with after you've got it in the data, like after he saves the record. If you want to take it from there, like he could have, for instance, taken, say, the API request of the ingredients, and if that's a JSON array, it may not be in this case, but if that was a JSON array, you could create those as a set of records as well, and have them tied to the parent record, and then do sorting inside of Builder, or you could do it before that using the paths if you want to. There's a lot of options. That's kind of the case with almost everything, especially when you're dealing with APIs. It's just always going to be dependent on whatever's coming back. But typically you can manipulate that data however you need to.
Cool. And the only other thing here is I kind of like built or pulled some of Bootstrap into Builder so that I could just more easily copy paste things. So for example, like these buttons, you can see that I basically just went to the documentation and then just brought it over into Builder. So this kind of helped me figure out how to implement Bootstrap into here. Sorry.
How did you actually bring it into Builder?
So the bringing in, I'll show you here. I use the page headers. Yeah.
You can just click on
up here for some reason.
You should be able to just click on the page header icon right below the name of the, yeah. It should be there. Unless you've.
Should I just refresh?
We'll see.
Anyway, I bring it in and add it as a page header, and then all of a sudden the Bootstrap classes are accessible to me in the studio then.
So page headers let you bring any external reference in. So that could be, it's literally like you're typing out what's going to be in the head of the page, right? So it can be anything. That's actually how, if you add a font into your Builder project, it actually creates a page header that goes and does the font request for like Google Fonts or wherever you're using it. Same thing with if you want to bring in libraries like this, or just setting up things like the meta tags for SEO and that kind of thing. It's all handled as a page header.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening right now. It's not opening up for me, but yeah.
That's strange.
Mm,
If you
Yeah,
want, I
let
can
me go
show.
pop into production and check real quick.
Well, and I can show my screen too and show page headers.
While you guys continue.
Okay, here we go. Project settings, right? Page headers. So I think this is the one I'm using here. It's not the most recent one, but I added this in. And so you can see I just grabbed the stuff from Bootstrap's website, which is like their style sheet, which is a CDN, and they've got some other things as well. Like, okay, there's jQuery right there, and then they've got their own JavaScript stuff as well. So I just dropped that off. Basically on the Bootstrap website, it says like, if you want to import this into your own project, you can just drop these into the header. So I did that, and then I turned on load this page header in the studio and load on all root pages, so that it actually shows up in the studio as well. So that's how I was able to bring it in. And then for the actual page, you can see that it's a bit slow right now. Anyway, on the actual page, basically I just create a div essentially, and then I use the classes like I showed you guys earlier.
So,
Yeah.
so you're referencing the all those external things in one page header, right? So basically the page headers allow you to bring in anything. Like that's, if I go and integrate, say, an analytics package or something, I go get the Google Analytics little script and I copy it and then I paste it in, right?
Very helpful, thank you.
And Steve, you can actually import the frameworks because you can actually upload any document you'd like and store them inside. But the edits to them wouldn't actually happen inside of Builder. Like you would edit those things in a text editor or something, and then re-upload the document or upload another version of it or something. So it doesn't necessarily have to be externally referenced. But most of the time I would suggest external referencing, just because there's usually already a somewhere someone else is storing the thing. But you can do it either way.
Hey, did we answer the question about the grids?
I was just gonna say, I could probably address that one if you want. Let me know, Steve, if I misunderstand the question, but I think I understand. But basically, like Mark was saying before, there's usually a lot of different ways to do stuff in Builder. So you could do that in a lot of different ways. The way I would do that is I would actually have a class on the card itself. And then when that card renders, I'd run a conditional. So, depending on what, why you want to show it in two different ways, whether it's has a certain variable set or it's a certain type of card, you might want to show it in a different size card. I would check that conditional with an action in the beginning, and then I would just use a simple add class or remove class action, which can add and remove a CSS class. And then just like regular CSS, that CSS class will dictate anything you need size-wise or style-wise in that card. But also, that's just like off the top of my head how I would do it. There's probably like a lot of different ways that you could get that done. And I mean, I don't know, I can't even off the top of my head just think of another one, but it really would depend on your situation. So if you have more info or something specific you want to ask, let me know and I can be more specific in an answer. But the short answer is yes, you can do it.
And actually, in a minute, I'll show you how I just did that for something in the new UI. I did something really similar.
Is there anything else that you guys want to see from this project?
Richard, are you gonna put in analytics in here? Because I'd be really interested to see like if you put Mixpanel integration and just kind of see what people's flow is.
Totally. Yeah, I haven't done it yet, but I would on the to do. Do you recommend Mixpanel?
I do. I
the best
like
one?
Mixpanel a lot. You know,
Okay.
they make it pretty easy to do. Like, you know, I really like theirs. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like a flow analysis. So you can just put a little trigger on every action the user is taking. So, you know, they go to your homepage, the page load, you can trigger one thing, then they click the sign up, you can trigger something there, and then just like take it every step of the way. So when they hit add recipe, do they actually paste into it? Do they actually hit the button? And then you can see, you can put in like, I want, you know, my goal, like the goal is that they add one recipe, right? And you can see where they drop off. They make a really nice analysis of it.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's it then for me, guys.
Richard, that is beautiful work. Thank you so much for taking us through that. And then if anyone has any questions or wants to see something in detail, let me know and we can always hop back in and take a look.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Richard. All right, so let me see here. Mark, actually, let me look at the time. I'm not wearing a watch and I just looked at my wrist. That's cool though. All right. So it's 11:38 here, so we've got some time left. Mark, do you want to give us some updates on what we are working on, what the team's working on, and then what we plan to roll out next week?
For sure. Yeah, so let me show my screen. Also, hey, Michael, good to see you join.
Hey, I was trying to slip into the back of the classroom quietly, but you spotted me. Sorry, I'm late.
No worries. No worries. Cool.
And actually,
go ahead.
Yeah, while Mark is queuing this up, I know, like, for example, Jay, I just let in, but I kind of asked him like to hold off until he can actually go through the new onboarding. So it would be tremendously helpful for us if anyone feels inspired after the update. If you go in there and you take a look at the changes, if you know what it was like before and you see it now, I would love to hear feedback on what you think works really well. If there's anything that you think we might have missed or didn't get right, please let us know. I know we had someone do like a video of their first impressions going in, and like that was super helpful. We can't see it in the way that y'all see it because we're in it too deep all the time. So if anyone feels inspired to like record a Loom or something just on their impressions of the new onboarding, that would be awesome. Just putting that out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Cora. Yeah, so I'll dive in. I think before I dive into some new UI stuff, I'll go take a look. I want to show how I actually did something really similar to that question. So the question in the chat was, you know, how if I have a grid of cards and I want, you know, one card to look one way and another card to look another way based on something in the data or something along those lines. And you can do this in a bunch of different ways, but I did it very similar to what Drew said. I think the only real difference was that I'm not doing it based on, I'm not adding a class or removing a class. I'm actually just like adding one property to the element or removing that property from the element, but it's the same thing. You end up like, I think I changed the width or something. So if you look here, this is in the new UI, you can add blocks. You can drag and drop blocks on. And if it's using an icon versus using a logo, versus using an image, I have one width of the card and one width of the image based on which type it's using. So when we're building out these cards in the data, me and Drew and Dorian are actually like putting a toggle on there. It's either an icon or it's an image that we want it to display as. So I'll show you real quick how I actually do that. I think it's on this one. Let me move this out of the way and I'll zoom in a little bit. There we go. Yeah, so I actually have on page load here, I run a condition called image type where I actually check, I'm actually checking a variable, but it's the same thing. You check whatever you want. So check some data collection value or anything you'd like. And then if the value is icon, I do this. If it's screenshot, I do that. And then in screenshot, I do all these things. I like set all this stuff. Now, this is typical how I'll do it. Like I started with one thing I wanted to change. So I was like, oh, I'll just do a set style because I'm just changing this one thing. I don't want to go make a whole class for it. And then it ended up being like, 20 things. So now at some point I'll go back in here and end up doing a class where I'll just swap the style class, add or remove that style class to it. But all I'm doing here is changing like the container width to 100%, and I'm changing the outer width to 150 pixels instead of whatever the default is. And that's what's generating the differences here. Let me drag that out. So that's what generates the differences in the width of the card and the spacing of things on the page. So you can use those conditional logic actions to do all kinds of things, but this is something that's pretty common. There is one other way to do this with grids that I use commonly. I don't have a good example of it, but you can actually inside of a grid have alternate page IDs based on the data that you're dropping into that grid. So you can say like, say you're loading a collection of customers. So you're building out a customer list. You're like loading a customer list. And let's say you have one display for when the customer is of type A and another one when they're type B. All right, so you can actually have two totally separate pages, and the grid will automatically render one page or the other, depending on which type that customer is in that case. So you can just do it based on the data. So that's another way to do it. The only problem with doing it that way is then you have to like maintain these two different pages for the different rows. So it adds some complexity to it. But there are needs for that sometimes where you actually have a totally separate thing that you want to do there.
Yeah, and we actually have that in the styling. That's how we do the properties.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. So that's over here. Whenever you go into a style and these different properties that they're displaying here, the reason it knows which one of these little forms to load is based on the value of the property itself. So Dorian's
Nice.
configuration just checks which one it is and loads that page instead of that page.
That's brilliant. Webflow's definitely my tool of choice at the moment, and it's quite frustrating not being able to kind of have that control. So that, yeah, this is amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And yeah, this is one of the things that, when we're doing things in Builder, we're always thinking in terms of building apps, right? Like you can build websites in Builder, but really it's about building apps and specifically building data-driven apps for the most part. You can do really any type of web app you want, but data-driven apps is really where it's at with Builder. So SaaS products, micro SaaS, that kind of thing.
Are there any collection limits at the moment? Any collection items at all? Or any limits that we've got to be made aware of?
No collection limits on number of rows or number of fields in a collection. I'm sure there are some technical limits to it, but there are no practical limits. So there's no arbitrary limiting of this many collection items or anything like that. I tested, I think I might have said this a couple weeks ago too, I tested running 1 million items into one container and actually trying to render it. And it died. I think it was like 675,000. It would not render anymore. Like it would just time out and die. But up into like a couple 100,000, it would take 20 seconds or something to like load it, but it would do it. And so I always try to push those boundaries. The best way to handle that kind of stuff is with filtering, right? So if you run into something where you are in the hundreds of thousands, pre-filter it so you're not getting all the data. And then also on the grids, if I go into the settings of a grid, the properties of a grid, one of the options in here is rows to display, where you can actually tell it the number of rows that you want to display by default. So you can just I'm actually scrolling up and down there. You can just change this. It's just a number. So you can say like show the first 100 and then auto show more on scroll. And when you scroll down and hit the bottom, it'll load the next 100. But what's cool about the way it does it, we actually preload all the data into the page. We just don't render it until you get to that scroll. So that means when you hit the bottom, it doesn't have to go do another network call. So it's instant loads the next set. So it's a really nice way to handle that. And similar to you know, what I was saying earlier, this really comes from just building lots and lots of production web apps with Builder. These are the things that you just run into when you're trying to do that. So this grid element, the type of element called a grid, this grid list here, that's going to be the most commonly used data element that exists in Builder, because it allows you to easily load a list of data into a page, and then you use another page as the display row, which gives you complete flexibility, right? So it's easier to use, say, a table view, but you don't have any real flexibility on the display of that table view. Whereas using a grid, you can do anything you want. Like this list over here, this is nested grids on the left panel. This is actually like a grid nested inside of a grid. That's how it builds that out. This is a grid. So we use those for just about everything.
That's excellent. Look, thank you. Thanks for everybody's patience. I know this is quite low-level questions, so thanks for everybody for letting me ask those questions. That's brilliant. Thank you.
No worries. And just so you know, that question is like one of the most common questions. So that's
Right.
why we're building out these lessons. And part of what I'm doing with that is deciding like what are the lessons we need to start with, you know? And so the ones that we're working on right now is one of them is working with grids. I just started on this one last night. I'm hoping to get it in there before we release next week. And then the same thing with centering with CSS. This is one that I think we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And
I'm
things
looking at
around data
Jay.
finding and filtering. Yeah. So, you know, I think everybody has the same questions as they get in, and that's what we've been really you guys have really been helping us with is, you know, we listen to what you're asking, and then we're turning those into these lessons, and we want to trigger those lessons automatically as you use the product. So when you come in next week, the first time you drop a grid, or if you use one of these new blocks like the grid row or the grid card, if you drop that onto your project, it's going to automatically open the grid lesson. So it would actually pop this up here and just show that to you so that you can then go in and dive in further. Now, once you've seen it, we won't pop that up every time or anything. It's just like the first time you do any of those types of actions. So we'll be adding that all over the place in Builder. There is no question that's too early, you know. Whatever you all are running into is what everyone runs into. So it's no problem at all.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I actually, before we go to Indirect's question, like super simple, can you just give me an overview of grids? Let's take it really basic.
Yeah.
Just to explain to me how, like, when you add a grid, you basically need to select a page that displays as the row or card or whatever inside of that.
Yeah, let's do this. I'm gonna actually just like make a new workspace in here, and then that way I can, you know, just like I can just do it real quick. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a main page that like displays a list of things, and then I'm gonna make a row page to use as the display thing inside that list. So you can start with either page. So I could start with like just put a blank page over here, and I'll change that to say, you know, this is my list homepage. And then let's drop a block. I'll drop the grid row block over here. And that's actually when you drop a block directly on the canvas, it creates a page and puts the block into the page by default. So this is, I'll call this list row. And then over here, so I've got now these two pages. I have list row and I have list home. So what I'm going to do is put the grid list element onto here. And then in the right side, I'm going to select what page I want to use as the render page for that grid. So now I have over here a list of these pages. And then what I would do is on that grid, tell it where to get its data from. So I'm going to say, get the data from this specific collection. So we'll go, I'll just pick one. I have collections in here already. So, and now I typically want to get all the fields when I'm loading a grid. And then you can filter it and sort it however you want. So you can filter it by the fields that are on the collection you selected up there. You can filter it by those fields like what Richard did. He filtered for the created by the current user information, the current user ID. And that's basically the basis of a CRUD app, right? You have a create, read, update, delete application, which is like 99% of all web apps, just more complex. And then you'll add your elements around it. So, and you might put like a heading here or something along those lines, and my list or something like that. So now I've got that and my list, and then you'd start adding everything else in, like a button to create a new one and all those things. And maybe on click of this, we would have a detail page that opens that detail page. But the grids are sort of the basis for doing all that work.
And then Mark, could you show us real quick, like if you're wanting to make any styling changes, you actually do it on the child page, which is that list row page.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah. So this is pointing at this page over here. And if you click this button, it'll select it and take you to that. So if you're not sure, because sometimes you get, you have 40 pages on your canvas or something. As projects grow, you got lots and lots of pages. And so you can just click that button, it'll take you straight to it. And then click on the element you want to change, and you can just modify it from here. So you're going to change this. So if I change, for instance, let's put, let's say we don't want the button. Okay, so we're just going to delete this button. All right, so you notice it's gone from the display over here as well. All right, so if you change things on that page, it's going to change it on the display on the other side. So let's say I want to put a tweet share button on there too. So we'll add that in there. Maybe. This isn't our dev environment, so be careful. But that's it. So now I've got my tweet button on each row. Right? And then you'd obviously need to go a little further and configure what happens when you click that tweet button and all those things. What else, Corey?
Awesome, thank you. No, that's it. I just, for anyone who's like non-technical or just learning, that's it's good to see it at that level first.
Well, this is what I'm working on for the content of the grid, working with grids. So you have grids plus filtered data, adding a grid to a page, assigning the grid row card, and then filtering the data. And that will actually show all those steps. And it will probably change as I actually go write that content out and record the videos, but.
Yeah.
Yep.
Super, thank you. So yeah, open up for questions. Otherwise, Indrak has a question about Postgres database. You guys want to take a look at that one? Maybe.
Was this question more like, what other service can you use to make an API out of a Postgres database? Is that what that means?
Okay, so I try to unmute myself. So basically, as a data source, I would like to use, I have an existing Postgres database and I would like to use that as one like data source. But there is no like REST APIs right now. So I'm testing different services, how to get this info in to Bildr. I've seen some tools, like one tool from different small companies, but I wanted to ask your opinion, like what kind of things people use or to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's specifically no code wise, there's like there's one call, I think it's called No Code API, which is the one I know most about, but I don't actually know that much about API services.
Yeah, they don't have Postgres yet. I think they said that maybe in the May. So
how about Parabola maybe, or Integromat? Parabola has a lot of good like large data set stuff, so they might be able to do something there. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, I've used Parabola. Actually, yeah, they have actually quite good getting data in from Postgres, but then sending forward to other. Actually, I think they're also not that good. They're basically sending data through, but if I just have to make like calls one by one, they are, to me, it seems not the right tool for that kind of task. I think I would like to just make lots of API calls. I'm looking for such kind of tool.
Where's the database hosted? Like, where's the Postgres database actually at?
It's in Linode, like data center at the moment, but it's accessible over the web.
I see. And so it just doesn't have, it has or does not have an API already exposed?
Does not have at the moment.
I see. So what you're trying to do is figure out a way to expose that with an API?
Yes, correct. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know of anything either. Dorian, do you know of anything that can do that? Richard, you got something?
I'm sending a thing in the chat. There's a tool called N8N, which I was playing around with. I think you might be able to do it. I did like a very simple test with N8N to basically create an API that uses the Google Translate API and then take the input from Bildr, send it out, do the translation, send it back in, and that was able to work. So it seems like N8N is able to connect with Postgres as well, so you could potentially do the same thing.
Nice.
Okay, but is it like a no code type or is it what you need to install? Because quite many tools that you need to install.
This is like a no code type of tool that you can use like I think HTTP request. So you can use the same kind of like request that I used in my app to call the Spoon Actor API. You can do the same thing to hit N8N endpoint, do the thing on N8N side, and then bring it back in.
Okay, I will check that.
And yeah, N8N is like an open source Integromat, right, Richard? It's
yeah.
Similar.
It's also
not
like
fully
really
open source,
advanced,
but it's a lot more. It's like I haven't used Integromat before, but coming from Zapier, it's like Zapier is like primary school and N8N's like college or something. It's like way more sophisticated.
Nice.
Thank you
Yeah, that's
for
a good
suggesting
suggestion.
that. Yeah.
And I'd be curious to know, Indrik, if that ends up working out for you too. If that is a good answer to that, we should add that to the community specifically about Postgres and N8N. I'm sure other people have the same questions.
Okay, thanks once more.
You.
Yeah, thank you for the good question, Indrek. So it looks like Lance was asking about bringing in SDKs. Do you guys want to take that question real quick?
Yeah, what did you mean specifically by SDKs? Did you have something in particular?
No, just a general question. You know, logic says you'd probably bring it in the same way Richard brought in the Bootstrap, especially if it's Java based.
Yeah, I was gonna say if it's a JavaScript SDK, there's a couple ways to bring it in, and so you could do the page header. You could also, depending on what it is, like if you're gonna use that SDK to do something, you might even create custom actions that pulls the SDK in inside the action and then just does what you need to do. And then also there's a whole other side with server-side actions where you can actually use NPM. So you can pull things in, and that's like basically a more advanced topic, but it, you know, you can pull in any NPM, any library and have full access like you would with code. Just JavaScript only, like whatever it is, it just has to be JavaScript.
JavaScript. Okay, excellent. Thought as much. I'll try it this week.
On the serverless stuff, it's node only, so it's pulling from NPM. Right now, it's node only. The backend does allow us to do pretty much any language. It's sitting on top of Azure Functions, which they've been amazing the last couple of years what they've done with their serverless architecture. But for now, it's node only, and then on the front end, it's JavaScript only. But you can bring, one thing we made a decision about a long time ago is there are no libraries used in Bildr core at all. It's all vanilla JavaScript that we wrote. And that was intentional because we knew people would want to bring their own libraries and things in, and we didn't want any conflicts at all. So you can bring anything in and we will not be conflicting with anything at all that you're doing.
Excellent. Thanks for that answer.
Right on. Okay, so I think that is a wrap for today. If you guys have any questions, chat us in the community. Otherwise, we plan to get this update out to y'all on Monday. So I'll be testing the rest of the day, and then we'll be working on filling out those lessons for y'all. So if there's anything that you specifically want to know about or want to learn about, let us know and we'll add a lesson in there for you. Thank you everyone for joining today and making it such a good call. I hope y'all have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for
Bye.
joining.
Great.
Bye everyone.
Thank you.